Alrighty, welcome back to another edition of the Hideaways Show Behind the Curtain. Mike, back from the Gorge after what seems like basically 6 months of you just like hunkering down in the Gorge, not answering my texts, not answering my calls, anything like that. How's it feel to come out of an area with no signal?
I practiced before we got on here doing like clicking sounds as my new language because I was just but I didn't commit to it when we did this. So I'm back. I still remember our native language. I've survived. I this is what it looks like to get back from 12 days in the wilderness, setting up furniture and driving everybody around and trying to maintain some sort of sanity. I'm not sure if I accomplished that or not. You'll have to let me know at the end of the week. But
Yeah,
yeah, we
I was
survived.
gonna say, what was it? You were telling me you were working like 16-hour days down there,
Dude, I got up every morning around 4:15
which is
and
not
just
abnormal. That's not
no
abnormal for you.
normal day. What was like abnormal is like the immediate, like just get on the computer and do as much as you can. Right? Like shove a little bit of coffee and maybe like a Pop Tart or an egg, whatever it is you could get in, for some breakfast. And then basically it was like just it felt like riding an avalanche until 9 p.m. That's the only analogy I have. Like there's very little time to like breathe, use the bathroom, eat anything. It's just like everything that you can do. You've got constant questions, which obviously happens when you're riding an avalanche. That's what it was, the analogy.
Yeah, of
And
course.
yeah, it's just nonstop. And then like at the end of the day, a lot of people are like, oh, let's go to the hot tub or let's go to the fire pit. And it's like, oh no, I have a whole day worth of work on the computer that I haven't acknowledged
Mm-hmm.
yet. So
Yep.
I've got to either go push that off or at least just make sure that like people are getting paid and things are getting answered and things like that. So I don't want everybody else to have to wait just because I'm there setting up furniture. So
The fine print of owning, running, and operating short-term rentals and building short-term rentals. It's always, everyone always talks about the home stretch of, once you acquire a property or build a property, it's the finishing touches, right? It's getting it online. It's putting furniture in. It's making sure water's hooked up, electric
yep,
is, power's on. It's an operational unit. And the unfortunate thing that happens with that, regardless of where you're at, whether it's a new build, whether it's something you're purchasing, there's always going to be something that, even as proactive as you want to be, something comes up that you were not expecting. It
yep,
happens every single time.
yep. It is
And
it is nonstop, dude. And it's to me, it's like we do every one of these. It's we literally live the definition of insanity, right? Because we go out, we set it up, and it's like every time we've learned a little more, we've processed a little more, we've planned for a little more, we've put a system in for a little more. And then what we're realizing is we're getting a little better. So we just run into the next issue sooner.
yep,
Right. There
yep,
is no difference in the gap between leaving and error. Right.
yep,
But it's like we would have had this error in 3 months. Now we just got a quick error because we just got all the way there. So
yep.
um I love it. That sounds super negative. I absolutely love it. They're crazy weeks. It makes me really appreciative for my family, my house, my setup here with 30 screens and a comfortable chair,
Mm-hmm.
not working in the corner on my laptop at 4 a.m. trying not to wake up the rest of the household and whatnot. So,
Yep. Yeah.
but
That was gonna be my question for you. And I know the answer for you, and I know the answer for me is like most people would ask you, but like, why in the heck would you do that? Why would you want to do that? And I
the-
think that's when you really know you're passionate about something,
yep,
when you know that's gonna be coming, yet you still do it, and yet you're excited. You're excited, nervous, all the above to go through it. But at the end of the day, it's part of the process. It's part of the job description. And at
yep.
the end of the day, it's gonna be worth it. Seeing guests come in, leaving glowing reviews, revenue starts hitting your bank account. It's all worth it at the end
Yep,
of the day.
100%. And it just takes getting to that point to really sit back and be like, oh, it takes getting to that point and it takes a little bit of like forgetting the pain. It's like
Mm-hmm.
motherhood, like you have the baby and then you forget like however many months or years later, where you're like, I want to do this again. Right. Same as this. It's like you get to the end, we had a guest actually today. I don't know if you saw this one, but you had offered her the, like a discounted rate. We had a gap night open after her stay, and we're like,
Yep.
hey, you can stay another day for a discounted rate if you want. She wasn't able to do it, but she said that she was coming out here because she has a massive life-changing surgery where she's having a double mastectomy and something else going on. And she just wanted to make sure that she planned like 3 or 4 days to disconnect prior to having all that and like spend time with her family and all that kind of stuff. And it was really cool because like immediately, like I'm getting chills just talking about it. But immediately I was like, we created that. right?
Yeah.
We created a space where this person who's having like the biggest event in her life, potentially, I'm making some assumptions, but the biggest event in her life to this point, right before that, she's going to come to our place for the joy and the peace and the connection and all that. And sentences like that come across our screen. Firstly, I'm just like, this is why we do it. Makes everything worth it. But secondly, it's really cool because immediately I was like, we're going to the store and I'm going to get the biggest bouquet of flowers I've ever found. And I'm going to like make a custom card and like make sure that we just drive home like how much we appreciate that she chose our place. And to me, like, I don't know, I just get so like stoked emotional. Stoked emotional. Is that a word?
Yeah. Sure. Make it up.
Yeah. Something like that. But yeah. So, and you're right. It's exactly that. So.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, it's what we signed up for. And I was thinking about the other day is like, you know, would I want to be doing this or would I like to go back to that 9-to-5 job?
Yep.
And let's say it was never even a thought in my mind. I'm like, I will take this 10 times over, you know, top to bottom, left to right, like this over sitting in front of a desk in a corporate job is I love it so much. And you were spot on with creating those memories and experiences for guests and hearing them, you know, talk about it is amazing. So
yeah. That being said, though, we have learned a lot.
I was just
feel like we might.
On the
I was going to say, I feel like we might be going through that today.
Yeah, well, it's always good to kind of take a step back and really see how far you've come and some of the things that you've learned. And you and I were talking about this, and I was like, let's kind of break down some of the top 5 things that we've learned from building STRs so far. And I put so far at the end because we're not done. We're going to learn a lot of new things as we continue to build more and more and more of these properties.
What'd you do? No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
A few moments later.
Well, if you're watching this, we had a little bit of a technical difficulty there on my end out of all things. You know, Mike, you've had a couple of those pop up from a few recordings, so it was only fitting that eventually I got one in there for the team. So
hey, you know what? We're imbalanced again. You had the bus, I had tech difficulties. Now you've got tech difficulties. I'm gonna have to really flop today on this.
We're balancing it out. What we're gonna talk about are the top 5 things that we've learned in building STRs so far. And the reason I say so far is because I don't know, do we have a number for how many we've built today? Is it?
Oh man, depends on who's asking. We did the training a while back, and a lot of what we put in there was like you basically build your pitch deck, you build your sentences for whoever it is that you're sending it to, so you don't say unique to a lender, right? They don't want to know it's unique; they just want to know it's a house. We built 74. We bought 45. We saw in the middle, and then bought. You could call that a build.
Yeah, like Cooper Pines. It was like halfway through.
So like half of those, you could put both of those together, call it one build. The 2 aprons we built, 6 silos we built. That's 8. What else we got in here?
Let's say 8. 9.
Yeah, 9. No, 9. Round up.
Let's say 9. We've built 9.
Yeah,
and we plan to continue building more. But it was one of those like, let's take a step back and see how far we've come, and I think also what lessons we've learned along the way. And honestly, we're going to give our top 5 today. There's a lot more that we could share on this, but wanted to, kind of just drop our top 5, go through those with you guys, and let's kick it off from the top. And I feel like this is something my dad always told me was, Jordan, never assume. So the first one of the top things we learned was never assume, and don't be afraid to get a second opinion.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
What do they say about people that assume?
Make an ass at you and me.
There we go. I mean, it couldn't be more accurate. I think that's why they made the word that way. Very true. The other thing though is like there's a lot that goes into building a house, right? You might think that if you've done a couple and it's like, oh yeah, like I'm really getting the hang of it. No, you never really do, right? Because you get a bad plumber, all of a sudden the whole thing changes. You got to learn plumbing, code, and all this kind of stuff. So there's just a lot of logistics and a lot of people and a lot of moving parts that happen in there. So for me, I don't want to be the expert, right? If I were the expert, I'd start building houses, and I don't want to build houses. I want to hire someone that I can trust and that I know does a good job. But at the same time, everybody has their own way of doing it, right? And our current builder, such a good guy, but he's like, I could walk into any house in America and start picking it apart. And another builder could walk into anything that I've built and start picking mine apart, right? So there's just discrepancies in how people do it, what they think is right, what they think is the most right to do it that way, that kind of thing. So like what you said, get a second opinion. I could not agree more. Sometimes a third opinion,
Right.
if they differ a lot, have somebody break that tie. I think AI helps us a lot with this now, right? In this state, in this county, what's the code and what is it that we need to do? Don't lean on that 100%. Like have somebody that actually knows the code and whatnot, look for it. But it just gives you a sway one way or the other. And if you've got the builder saying this is the right way, then the inspector says that that's the right way. And then you upload a photo to AI and it says, hey, that's the perfect way. You're like, okay, that's 3 for 3 saying we're on the right track. I could probably ignore that and go to the next problem because there will be another problem.
Right. And I think with that, there's the never assume piece, but also like ask questions. Ask so many questions, even if it seems like you're asking 1.5 million questions. Continue to ask those questions, because just because you assume someone, maybe knows exactly what they're doing, or, they're up to code, maybe you ask a question, they're like, oh shoot, like maybe there was something new that was put in place, right?
Yep.
And they're like, oh my gosh, like it sparked something within them. Always ask the question, never assume, like you said, get the second, third opinion, get multiple eyes on it. And because for most people that are going to be going into this world of building short-term rentals, they've maybe have never built anything, or maybe they've built one or learned from someone along the way. There's going to be some people out there that have built before, and now they're like, well, I'll just build short-term rentals and generate revenue. Those people more than likely are going to be the ones building, so maybe this doesn't apply to them. But it is very much the case of never assume, get the second opinion, and don't be afraid to ask questions.
100%.
So
the other thing, if you're going to ask questions before you go, is get that in writing, right? That's a huge one. If you're going to get it, like send them an email instead of that, and then just say, hey, I sent you an email. If you don't mind responding later tonight. Now we've got it there. It's not, you're again taking the assumptions out of what you interpreted versus what they said. It's all right there in writing.
Right. And especially if you're going through and doing something that's custom, if you told them on site something and you're assuming or expecting them to remember, at least having it in writing. If they say, hey, I don't recall having that conversation or talking about that, you can at least indicate or point back to say, listen, we sent the email, we talked about it here, this needs to be done. So there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of conversations that are happening. That's one of the big things is making sure you do put it in writing.
100%.
So the second one, and this one, I think Allie told me right before we started building, short-term rentals, and actually, I think it was right before we got into doing Cooper Pines. And she's like, make sure you have multiple inspections and walkthroughs during the build process. And maybe even add a few more that you don't necessarily think you need, but be walking through the different phases of the build and making, asking, again, back to, the first point of asking questions, pointing things out, never assuming that it's done correctly or the job is done, right? Have those inspections and walkthroughs in place so you have a chance to see, the build through the build process and be able to ask those questions. And maybe, since there are a lot of hands in the pot on this, and we were talking, potentially doing something custom, a lot of times things get missed. And if you're doing those walkthroughs and inspections, gives you a better chance of catching those up front versus getting towards the end of the build. You do one inspection at the end. You're like, well, wait, I thought we were going to do I'll just give it a simple example. In the bathroom, I thought we were going to do the tile, we were going to lay it vertical and not horizontal. Well, now everything's been laid, everything's been waterproofed, everything's in place. Sure, you could probably go through and rip it out, but how much is that going to cost? And, what does it look like to go back on that? So those inspections and walkthroughs will save you
100%. And the inspector that does them, as long as you get somebody that's qualified, which should be a prerequisite, man, I can't even say it.
Try again.
I'm not going to say it. We're just going to go on. But the, you should make sure that happens prior to them going out there. That being said, that inspector will be able to tell you the normal time for when things should be done. I've run in the past where when I was building, they're like, well, we'll do that later. We'll do that later. We'll do that later. And it didn't make sense to me from a common sense perspective. Like I know how common sense doesn't overlap everywhere. And I told myself, like, I'm the least knowledgeable person on the build process in this room today. So I'm going to trust that opinion. And then it didn't happen later because there were other things that were in the way. And I was like, I told you about this when it was empty. Like, what do you mean? And those kind of things, you can go to that third party and say, does that make sense? Right. And a lot of times the third party will be like, no, they need to do that right now. So.
Right. Exactly. And that's very much with, like we were saying, the second opinion is having those walkthrough. And if you're not an expert in the space, get someone who is, right? Get someone who knows what they're looking at, because maybe you're looking at something, you're like, I don't know. It looks right. Looks good to me, right? But if someone who's done 40 plus builds, 100 plus builds, and has inspected properties, every single day,
Yep.
they're going to know what to look for, and they're going to be like, hey, that's not done correctly, or they forgot to add that, or are you going to add this over there? They're going to ask those questions to get those wheels spinning. Then you can say either like, oh shoot, I missed that, or I don't know, let me go talk to the builder, whoever is in charge of putting that in place, and ask that question. It's going to bring to light a lot of things earlier on versus asking that question when the build's done and flooring's laid, tiles up, drywall's up, paint's up, fixtures are hung. It's sometimes too little too late to ask those questions. And if you do, and you want to shift or change things, the expense of doing that and the headache of doing that is going to be 10x more than it would have been if you would ask at that point within the inspection. So the third thing, and this we've kind of talked about a little bit, is document everything. And Mike, when I say everything, do I mean everything or just something?
Except for the things you don't want to. The things that are inconvenient and like really take a lot of time or make you take an extra trip, don't worry about those things. But the rest of it, you document everything. When I go out and take photos of our builds right now, it's like a very intense process. And I go into every single room and I do a vertical and a horizontal photo of every single wall. I take a tape measure and I measure like the distance between the wires for like vanity lights and things like that. I'll measure out where the placement for the light switches are and things like that. So everyone on the team can see it. And then I label them, which house and what date. And I put them into a folder. Says site visit this day, site visit this day, site visit this day, so that it's all there. And I can't tell you how many times now we've got drywall up, we've got beds in and all that kind of stuff. And someone will come in, a handyman, and be like, oh, I wish I knew like where this wire was. And I'm like, hold please. And I go to before the drywall was in and I'm like, this is the wall that you're looking at. Here's the wires. And we can find it within a couple inches because of that.
Right.
So,
which is helpful. So I got a question for you. And I don't know if I've ever asked you this before. Why do you take a vertical and horizontal photo?
So I do it because if we want to use it for different formats, it's very easy for me to stand there, twist it, and take another photo. Right. And with the rename feature on the Mac, it's really easy to rename everything. So it's very low intensity for me to just take both of those photos. But at the same time, if we want to use it for build progress, or if we want to capture something different, how it transitions to the ceiling, anything like that, it just gets different angles. So
no, that's smart. And it, like you said, it takes half a second to do one vertical, one horizontal, and on to the next room. But it's very much where, like you were saying, photos, videos, get things in writing, text, emails, make sure all those are in an organized fashion. So you have that for the project for future use, right? If someone comes and says like, hey, where's this wire? You either have, maybe you don't have the exact photo, but maybe you have a text from the builder saying where it's at or how something was done. You can go back and look, because I think a lot of people, they do this within their everyday life and sometimes even work, where they're just like, oh, I'll remember that, right? And that's what, let's say that's month 2 of a 9-month build, right? Well, what happens in 2 months from time, and you don't document that, you didn't write it down, you didn't take that photo, you put that in email, you're not going to remember. Like you may tell yourself today you're going to remember, but it's like, when in doubt, just document it somewhere, even if like it's in, if you're talking to someone. Write it down or put it in notes on your phone, and then put it into whatever system you need to organize that, whether that be Google Drive, Asana, whatever tool that may be. Have it documented and organized somewhere, because the builds, there's a lot, like we say, there's a lot that goes on, and you're going to want to have that organized for in the future for multiple reasons, right? So it's documenting, not just from a content perspective, but just documenting so you understand your property inside and out, top to bottom, where everything's at. And I think it will save you a significant amount of time in the future.
100%.
So,
like people have no idea how much it helps.
Yeah. Well, and also knowing too, like you want to know like where the septic tanks, where the septic lines ran, like versus like just having someone do it and be like, they're saying like, yep, it's done. Great. You want to know where that's at. And more so if you ever need it to be repaired, or if you go to sell it, or if anyone asks questions, or you go to add a fire pit, you're like, great, can't add it there. I got to build it up because there's septic lines there. I can't do anything. I can't put a driveway there because that's where the septic tank's at. Right. You need to know where all of that is. And again, document it like crazy, because there's going to be something that comes up. There's going to be a repair that happens. There's going to be an issue that pops up, and you're going to need that information.
It's amazing to me how many people just kind of discard it. Like sometimes they get the thing that they need and then they're like, oh, I don't care about that. Right. And they throw away the photos, they delete the photos, or they don't have the blueprints or whatever. And it's like, it's one of those things that you're never going to need until you do. And then you do. And it's like, oh my gosh, like, why did I get rid of this?
Yeah.
So
one, I guess this is number 3 on our list. I'm going to say 3A is when you are going through, document things like the model number on the dishwasher, the refrigerator, the microwave, the water heater, all of those things. That's something that we learned, even if you're not building a property, if you acquire a property, make that part of your inspection walkthrough process. If you're going to go through and you're going to capture all that information, because if you're, let's say I wasn't working with you, Mike, and I'm living here in central Iowa, I'm 11 hours away from these properties, right? It's a lot more difficult for me to hop in the car, hop in a plane and fly out there just to snap some photos of, all that stuff. What I could do it initially, and have that in front of me, to where if something does pop up, then I can look up the manual, or if a guest has a question, I can look up that information versus being like, I know it's a tankless water heater. That's about all I know. Right.
And then to have the handyman go out there and do it, it's like $75 per trip. Right. It just gets insane. It's like, it's not even worth it anymore.
Yep. And so that's a good point too, is document everything about your property, whether it be a new build or one that you're acquiring. You're going to want and need that information, even if you don't think you will. Document
and with AI nowadays, like you just talk to your phone and go through it. Or update photos or whatever. Like it's not challenging to do. It just takes a little bit of time and meticulous kind of walkthrough. So. Yep.
But all right. We are on number 4 of our top 5 here. Number 4.
Dude, we're flying through these.
I know. Maybe I should slow down. I'm going too fast. But no, this one I think we'll we could talk on a little bit is it's going to be, it may seem expensive up front, but I will promise you it will save you money and liability and time down the road, especially when you're building and doing unique projects, is hire a structural engineer. Because it is unique in structure to where there's the loads of how things should be for that build. Like it's not just a standard stick built 3-bed 2-bath house. It's something unique, whether that be I just think of, for example, like Box Hop, putting a container home over a waterfall and putting a glass floor on the ground. Like what type of glass do you need? What structure do you need in place to keep that there? Like I think there's a lot that goes into unique projects to where, if you don't know, different loads and how things need to be done structurally, you could be in a bind down the road to where it's like, you might as well pay that money up front to have a structural engineer do it and ensure it's done the correct way, so you don't run into an issue of if the deck or something wasn't properly supported or something along those lines. Like it limits liability down the road because you've had a structural engineer put their stamp on that says this is structurally sound.
Yeah, just transferring that liability is worth it 100%. Where it says they said that it was okay and it was built that way, and I have photo documentation for the last one, to prove that it was done that exact way. Like to me, it's worth its weight in gold. You just never know when something's going to happen, and the last thing that you want is to trust someone that you shouldn't have trusted, and all of a sudden someone else get hurt that was innocent in the mix. Like you've got to.
Right. But I mean, what if someone comes to you, Mike, and says, look, I don't want to hire a structural engineer because I want this done by the end of the year. It's going to slow me down. I mean, if to someone that says that, what do you say to them?
I would almost like call out our 5th point, right? Which is fast is the enemy of good, and in my opinion, there's a way to do it where you can get it done quickly and well, but you have to be experienced. If that's the first time that you do it, that's not going to happen. Right. So examples for us, it's like we were building a couple of houses and all of a sudden, like the windows didn't come in. It took 8 weeks of sitting perfectly still because we were not lied to, but like we were told they were going to come in at a certain point. It just didn't happen through the big manufacturer. So that being said, the structural engineer, if you get your plans done and you know what you're going to get built, send it to the structural engineer right away. Right. Let him look at the things that he needs to look at and start that process so that it's done by the time you actually need it. Right. Same thing for windows. But this right here, if you're going to bypass that in order to get it done on time is a relative time for what your expectations are. So if your expectations override safety for future guests, I'd say that's a bigger issue than anything else. Like you need to make sure that you give it the appropriate time, however much that is, depends on every market, but give it the appropriate time that it requires, even if that means slowing down.
Yeah. Well, I think that you're going to, more than likely, unless you know what you're doing and you know what you're looking at, is it's either going to slow you down in the beginning to work with that structural engineer to get things in place, or it's going to slow you down eventually down the road. And and unfortunately, when it slows you down the road is when that property is up and renting, and you're going to have to pause, close things down, pause revenue, and get, either, review that property, make sure it's structurally sound, or have a structural engineer come out and, hey, like if they come say that isn't quite right, that needs to be tweaked. That's not quite right, that needs to be tweaked. How are you going to make those fixes? Well, if it's small enough, sure, you could close the cabin down for a day or two and, not a big deal. But if there's something major, that's going to be lost revenue for you because you didn't want to take the time up front to have a structural engineer come out and make sure, hey, put my stamp of approval on this. Everything looks good. Everything's safe. Everything's done correctly. And you have that up front. So, hey, we're good to go into the future. Now, there's wear and tear, there's, the house will settle, things like that will happen. But as long as that structural engineer says it's done correctly, those are minor in nature, as opposed to, if something just wasn't properly supported and someone's like, you need to address this immediately and it's going to cost you thousands of dollars, you're going to be kicking yourself because you should have been like, gosh, I should have listened to Mike and Jordan on that podcast episode 67. I should have listened when they said, slow down. Fast is the enemy of good, and make sure you get that structural engineer done.
I can't tell you though how many times I've run into that where it's like, we just need this day, put a lot of pressure on people, everybody's down to the wire, and you're like, it's not going to happen. Then you pull it off and you're home. You're like, oh my gosh, I did it. This is great. And then like a week later, you're like back to square one. You're like, it's way more disappointing to like find out later that you've got to slow down, like you're saying, than it is to just do it from the beginning. It's just like what we talk about with like decorating. All these people are like, well, yeah, we're going to do it to the nines. It's going to be perfect. Then they start seeing the expenses and they're like, well, like maybe what we could do is like a kiddie pool instead of a container pool because they both start with the same sound. And it's like, no, you can't do that, And then at the end, they're like, it didn't make the $300,000 a year you promised. And I was like, firstly, we didn't promise. Secondly, you didn't put any of the things in that we suggested. Right. Same thing with this. It's like, just do it right the first time. It's going to be terrifying. And then at the end, you're going to be like, I'm so glad I didn't.
Right. Exactly. No, I was going to make a comment there, but then I realized it would have actually backfired on me. So I'll go ahead and say it because now everyone's going to be wondering. You said kiddie pool at first. I thought you said it starts with the same letter. And I'm like, container pool and kiddie pool do not start with the same letter. I don't know if you guys do things a little bit differently out there in Kentucky, but apparently people from Iowa don't listen because I wasn't listening to what you said.
Sounds different. It's a similar sound, maybe not the exact same sound. But
sorry, I got our oldest turned 5 today, so my brain's everywhere. So, but no, and I mean, so we went through 5 things there. I think we could probably spend another, the rest of the day up till midnight if we wanted to, going through all the other things that we've learned and sharing it. But I mean, that's just scraping the surface of what you're going to learn through building properties. And honestly, I'm sure there's other things that we didn't even bring up that we haven't even experienced yet. That maybe if we do this podcast in a year or in 2 years, this top 5 is going to be completely different, because a lot of this could be just elementary to us where it's like, well, duh, you should, you should know those things.
Dude, there's people out there, no matter where we're at with that, there's people out there and you're like, thank goodness. I'll start with these. The thing that like always gets me, I'd love to get somebody who's like built in a big city, like James Daynard, right? Just doing stuff in San Diego and Seattle, like more restrictions and codes and all this stuff, and permits and everything there. I'd be really interested to see like what their, expert level versus what we're doing in a lot more laid back rural community. Like I'd be really interested to see what the differences are in those lists there.
Yeah, I'm sure it's it's significantly different, but it's I'm excited for where we're headed. Closing out 2025 here and into 2026. It's going to be got some special things happening, and it's always nice to take that step back and see how far you've come, see what you got going on. I think we talked about it the other day of like, we're always hardest on our own listings and our own properties. We're like, I could have done that better. And then you get someone that from the outside looking in, they're like, oh my gosh, your portfolio is magnetic. Like it's incredible. Right. And it's always, you're in the weeds. You're working on it day in and day out to where you don't realize that and you don't appreciate it. It's nice to slow down sometimes, take a step back, see where you're at, see what you've learned and go from there. So
it is cool to like high level and then look at the beginning, You know,
Yep.
the first house in Spokane, the first house in Texas, and then come back and be like, oh, like that's different. So
Dude, like I wish I've had that moment multiple times where I'm like, this is a pivotal moment. Like this is a big decision. Like I'm making the right decision. And looking back and I'm like I was an idiot like, for that Texas property. It was like, what
isn't
was
it
I
wild how you
thinking?
can remember though? Like you remember
Yeah,
that
yeah.
feeling, and you're like, this is like,
I know
yeah,
exactly where I was. I know exactly where I was sitting too. Like
yep,
that's the crazy part. But
yep.
hey guys, real quick, just want to jump in here and say, if this show has been sparking ideas and helping you level up your short-term rental game, we would be so grateful if you drop us a 5-star review. It helps us and this show reach even more people who want to build wealth through unique, unforgettable stays, just like you. So thanks for being a listener. Now, back to the show. Well, let's dive on over to the Would You Book It segment.
Bum, bum, bum.
For anyone who is new here and does not know what the Would You Book It segment is, what it is Mike and I, we bring a property every single week and we look at it from a perspective of would you book it as a guest and would you host it as a host? And a lot of time what we try to do is we try to avoid bringing in school buses or anything like that. What we try to do is we try to bring in cool, unique properties that you're not seeing every single day. And sometimes it's like without question, I'll book that and I'll host it. There have been a lot of times where it's like it's unique, but maybe it's too unique, or it's just not what we're looking for. So with that being said, let's dive into the Would You Book It segment. And if memory serves me correctly, you went first last time. So
I did.
I am going to, were you saying I did or
You
I
did,
did?
no, I did go first. You're
Okay.
first this week.
Okay.
So
Well, let me share my screen here. Move this over. I always gotta remember, don't hit the wrong button. All right. We are looking at Raven Rock Mountain.
okay.
I think you've seen these before.
I don't know if I have. The Raven Rock sounds really familiar, but I think it was that girl that we had on the.
So they have these 3 properties.
Dude, that's cool.
They're definitely unique.
Yeah.
Some of them are like they're very rustic looking. I think their most popular one is this skyscraper treehouse.
Yeah, I was just looking at that.
And it's very. I look at this just from what we've been through and exactly what we're talking about. It's like
Is that what brought up this topic, Jordan?
Yeah, maybe a little bit, but it's like what, like I maybe again, maybe
Where
the
is
structure's
it?
out, but it's a tree. It's in, is it North Carolina?
These are pretty.
Yeah, Fletcher, North Carolina.
Dude, I love that spiral staircase around the tree.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Very, very unique.
I don't know if I'd stay in that.
That's got me a little nervous. That deck. Yeah, I don't know. Like what's crazy is they have 3 of them. And I think what makes them unique is like they're not the nicest cabins in the world, but they're done in a unique fashion. And I think that's why they're so appealing to people. I looked on Airbnb and I think this one had like 640 reviews.
Yeah.
The other one had like 380. The other had, but like if you look at some of these, like this one, it's almost like what it's built on is what makes it unique.
That's what I was gonna say. Is like it looks like the actual structure, and I love stuff like this. Like we've talked about a lot, where you do something normal, but you do it in a unique manner.
Right.
Like that. Not that place is normal by any means, but like you look at the house, and that's just a log cabin, but like how they did the foundation of that,
Right.
that's
Well,
really cool.
It's very different than like, for example, the Paradise Lakes or the Brandywine Groves world, where it's a very modern, high-end luxury cabin. But I mean, I know some of the creators that have shot this, and I'm like, there's some of the bigger name creators, and it's like you look at the cabin, and it's like, again, it's unique, but like for me, I would, if we were building this, the first thing I would say is like, good God, like we couldn't have done anything about the block here. But
those stones.
I think it's intentional. I really do.
Yeah.
I think it's intentional to get it to look like this.
Yeah.
So, but with that being said, that's number 2. So that's the Skyline Ridge. They got the skyscraper treehouse, and they got the cliffside cabin. This one has some cool like photos, like shots. Again, it's how it's structured, right? Look at that. Like it's on a ledge.
Perched. Yeah.
Yeah. but
with the
cabin
fire pit
is-
underneath. That's cool.
Yeah, but like the cabin itself, again, is like it's very just a rustic. I don't know how much it was to build something like this, or if it was already in place and they just restored it. I don't know.
Dude, if that was in place, it's from like the Oregon Trail.
That's what I was thinking.
Ah.
And then I would, and of course they had a structural engineer come out and make sure all is good.
Dude, but sitting at that, like what put him on it? 16 out of 23. Where are you at? 13? Keep going.
Yeah.
And like go back to the left one. That.
Yeah.
Dude, like people will pay big amounts of money just to sit in peace like that.
Well, and that's also, I think, where that, now if you took that cabin and put it on a rock without that view, I don't know if it would have as much draw.
Correct. I think the view just killed it.
I think the view is really what lifts that. So
yeah.
With that being said,
yes, and yes.
Yes and yes.
I don't know if I'd sit in Treehouse. I'm probably have to look at it. To be honest, like I love it. I think it's an awesome place. People that have not been through the things that we just went through, right? The list that we just went through, I could totally see why they would do it. And I think that place would have a ton of money. But those trees on the left, man, they look pretty small. On that tree, the trees on the left side of that treehouse, and it looked like a genuine treehouse. Like there are no supports.
Oh, I know.
For the thing.
Yeah,
I would want to look at like who built it and what exactly went into that. But dude, the big one kind of looks dead. It's really well done.
$92 a night.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Dude, that's insane. I thought that thing would be $600 or $700 a night for sure.
I know. $85 in December. That's nuts.
Wow.
But I don't know. I haven't looked close enough to see, like, I don't know if it has like, does it have heat? Does it have, oh yeah.
I wonder,
a fireplace and heating. Yep.
I wonder how they're marketing this place because it is wildly available.
I know. Now, I don't know.
Huh. That's interesting.
They must have a fourth one here as well.
Yeah, that cliffside and the Skyline Lodge, 100%. I would love to stay there, and I would love to host all of these as long as the treehouse were safe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, which it probably is. I don't know this place. You just showed it to me, so I'm not saying anything bad about them. We've been through a lot.
Yeah. Do you think you could get more than $85 a night?
100%. Dude, I think marketing that place, I would be shocked if our Mondays didn't go for $300 or $400.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and it's like even some of the stuff, like I think they could have, and maybe it was very intentional to where it was just like they want to do something cool, unique. It caught the attention of people, and they're like, great, it costs us nothing. $92 a night is perfect. So, I don't. I would say from a guest perspective, I would book it for the view.
Yeah.
Not for the uniqueness of the cabin or anything. Like the spiral staircase is cool. I think that would lose its draw pretty quickly for me.
Yeah. It is a lot of steps at the end of the day.
I also think like if it got super windy in that thing, I'd be a little nervous,
Yep.
Like,
yep.
So it would probably be the view for me is what would do it. But then again, there would be a lot of other places in that area that would have view. So I would say maybe as a guest, and from a host perspective, I think it would do well. I think we would crush it. I don't know, the trees here just have me nervous. Like, how long would this last? What liability would come with that? So I would actually say no from a host perspective.
What about the other ones?
Yes. The other two, I would say yes. I would want to make a couple changes to them. Like I would still want it to be rustic, but I think you could update a little bit the interior to make it almost like rustic modern in a way, not super modern, but just a little bit nicer to really allow us to bump up that ADR. But so I would say yes for those two. The treehouse, it's super cool. It looks cool in photos. I would just be so nervous to get that text from someone that says like, "Hey, the tree fell." It'd just be terrible. So,
dude, I could not imagine getting that ever. I never really thought about that with tree houses because most of them are so fake now. Mm-hmm. Right? Like you look and they're just like high stilts. They're not really up in the trees.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Picturesque wedding venue. That's interesting. I wonder if they have something on site that also.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, 36,000 on Instagram. So there is definitely some draw to them. They've got a good following, and so we'll see.
Interesting.
Interesting is the correct term to use.
Well, let me show you. I don't know if it's quite as cool, but let me make sure I got the right screen here. Is this the right one? Oh, wait. I'm sorry. Not that one. Sorry. Had the wrong one up there.
Oh, Harry's Hut. I love Harry's Hut.
Harry's Hut, Otago. This place is actually cool. CanopyCamping.co. It's in New Zealand. So, like, firstly, yes to everything. New Zealand's cool. Someone actually sent me this right before we were jumped on, and they're like, we should build something like this. And I was like, this is probably like this is probably just like scrap wood and scrap metal that you just throw together and, put a little outdoor used worn down tub with a fireplace next to it. Like, I was like, I'm pretty sure we could do this. This one, I don't know, to me, it just looked really cool. Like, it's definitely the experience, right? There's a lot of people that are not going to come to this, but at the same time, I was like, that's cool.
Yeah.
Right. Sitting out there looking over the plains of whatever state this is in or whatever territory this is in New Zealand. This kind of stuff, man, when I went to Hawaii, they had all these like outdoor couches and whatnot. And it was the like wildest experience because they were like awesome. And then all of a sudden it would rain for 2 days and they just throw it away and go find another couch somewhere else and take it and just put it on their porch. But it's like, it reminds me of that. So there's like a lot of sentimentality towards like this kind of setup. I love these things. And yeah. So, but yeah, I thought it was a cute little thing. Obviously not fancy, not the highest quality.
No,
it just looks like a lot of old stuff.
But I think the surrounding area is what really I think makes that place look.
Yep.
And they have like little moments like that throughout the property that I think allows it to be come across feeling like, oh, I could see myself going there, versus if they didn't have some of those things. I could see some people like, it's cool, but if it didn't have that, exactly. If it didn't have that tub, would it be as intriguing?
I just want to know what kind of telescope like the person that lives right here has. You're all private and then not
so private.
That just looks cool. It's like you would pass that on the road and be like, oh, an abandoned hut, right? And then you like go on the internet and you're like, it reminds me of people that were like, when our parents were growing up, you would do everything you could, and then there were a couple people that like didn't make it, right? And it's like, oh, Tim, didn't make it, got fired, and now he lives in a van down by the river, right? And nowadays it's like, maybe one day I'll be able to afford a van to live in a van down by the river. If I make it to the top, then I can live in a van down by the river, and it just changes the perspective. I see this as being the exact same thing, right? Oh, we've got this like abandoned shack. What do we do? Well, let's reposition it, get some great photos, add a charcuterie board to that weird hot tub down at the bottom, and then rent it for a couple $100 a night.
So I think this is a perfect example of perspective and how photography changes this place.
Yep.
If you took lackluster photo, and again, that right there, go up, the hosts, showing that to me, there's a story to that property as well.
Yep.
Like there's like interest, like, oh, well, what's the story of this family, right? Because you already kind of have questions about the property, like what is this? If this was taken with poor lighting, poor cell phone photos, you know what that would look like to me?
A rundown shack.
It would look like a rundown shack that like a horror documentary or a horror film was shot at, right? And you would look at that property and you'd be like, never in a million years would you catch me there. But with the right lighting and the right unique amenities and the right photography, it becomes a property that you'd be like, I could see myself going there. Like it almost in a way is weirdly unique and weirdly romantic at the same time.
Yeah, I agree.
So
340 a night, $580 for 2 nights. That's decent price.
Mm-hmm.
You're buying the experience, that's for sure. I love that.
A real quick question for you. What's going on with the icons down there? Is that a knife for rates and extras?
Yeah, these extras. Like you'll pay if you want to leave with all your digits.
You want to talk about sometimes the little things don't matter. You could
Yeah.
just throw whatever icon you want to on rates
Yep.
and extras and no one will say anything.
They're like,
except
we
for
don't
me.
have one. We don't have one that says rate. We're just going to use this weird thing. That's awesome. I never even would have noticed that.
But so this is, and you were just showing the calendar, and there's still some dates in October open. I'd be curious to know if, do they have
all
more?
these. Oh, dude, this canopycamping.co. They have hundreds.
Is this like a booking platform, or is this a company?
I think it's a company.
Okay.
For this type of thing. But
Gotcha. Okay. I didn't know if this was all that family owned all these properties.
No.
They're on to something.
Yeah.
But, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say this. I actually would book it.
Yeah.
And I would host it.
Yeah.
Just because I think it's done in a unique way that I think it would turn some heads. It would get people to stop, right? Stop scrolling and be like, well, what is that?
Yep.
Right? Because I'm normally the type, and you know me, sometimes I guess you could say I'm a little bougie from time to time. Like, okay, that right there, I could really get down with that. 100%. I'm down with that.
Sky House.
But I like some of the more modern, newer looking properties to where that one is definitely not within my wheelhouse, but it's done in that unique fashion to where it's like, it actually is kind of cool, and it would be a cool experience. So I would say yes from booking it from a guest perspective and from a host perspective as well. I think it would do well hosting it, especially if you had the right photographer and videographer come in, plus that landscape.
Yeah. The landscape is incredible.
Yeah.
I think I would definitely host it for sure. I would book it, but not at that rate.
Agreed.
I would choose out of all these that are here. That's not the one that I would choose for that rate. Right. Like I like this one or the one that we just looked at there above. I like those a lot more. Now that being said, if they were like, hey, we've got a quick turnaround or a date open, it's $200. The one thing that I would want to make sure is that they did have Wi-Fi. I know people are like, that's dumb, go disconnect. But at the same time, like my like dream of like awesome there would be like going out by myself, like do a little work on that hill, like just getting creative again.
Yep.
Well,
so you're not going to go there to use the internet to just binge stream Netflix all day long, right? You're
not at all.
You are in a way going to disconnect, but you're also going to a place where it's uninterrupted time to just think.
Yep.
And for 100%. Us to be able to think and capture what we're thinking, a lot of times requires Wi-Fi. So
I agree.
Yeah, I would be curious to know what that little shack would do. I think on like on a beach somewhere. I also think like something like that would do really well to like the double garage doors with a rustic building right there. It would give off. You ever like see those movies where it's like people go out and they're surfing, but then they got this little like rustic little like hut that I think could do well there as well. But it's very, very unique. Nice job on that one.
You like that?
I like that one. So look at that. You turned me from a nice bougie modern place to a rustic shack in New Zealand. So
there you go.
Plus it's New Zealand. I guess if you put that in the middle of nowhere in the United States, maybe it's not as much of a draw, but no, that was cool. Those are definitely two very unique sets of properties that we brought up. So
I agree.
I was going to bring up another one. Maybe I'll save that for a future week. So
do it. Save it next week. Save it for next week.
You've already seen it, and actually, I don't think we ever got into whether we would book it or host it. So that's why I want to bring it in. So when I pull it up, you're like, oh yeah, we talked about this, but that'll be for a future episode. So maybe I'll wait like 6 weeks. So there'll be 6 weeks of just a ton of things going on, and then I bring it back in. You're like, I've never seen this property before.
I don't know, man. We don't have much going on. It's not like 6 weeks we'll forget stuff.
It's not busy season or anything.
Yeah.
So, but well, cool.
Crazy.
That was I like that topic. I like those properties. So you know what? If you're watching this, leave a comment. Who picked the better property, Mike or I?
Oh, yeah, I like
I'm
that.
curious to know. Well, I'm trying to rebound from this school bus thing. I'm still like paying my dues to try to like rise to the top. I think
if they're going to comment on which one they like better, start from the beginning, right? Episode 2 where you did it.
They're like, man, Jordan needs it might help me though. They'd be like, yeah, he needs every bit of help he can. I'm gonna vote for Jordan. So
I love it.
But well, cool, man. Well, that does it. Another amazing episode of the Hideaways Show Behind the Curtain Edition. I'm Jordan Holmes. He's Mike Sebastian. Until next time, take care, everyone.